We also investigate whether naturalistic evolution can explain morality. Okay? So these four skeptics that you just saw on the screen just now, if you were there during the New Atheism movement, these are the four horsemen, right? They are the most popular atheists at that time. Okay? Now they all say that we don't need God. And Dawkins goes further to say that without God, we can still define good and evil. But here's the irony. Okay? The atheists themselves, again, Richard Dawkins, says that if the universe were just electrons and selfish genes, meaningless tragedies are exactly what we should expect, along with equally meaningless good fortune. Such a universe would be neither evil or good in intention. The universe we observe has precisely the properties we should expect if there is at bottom no design, no purpose, no evil, and no good. Nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. Right? So Dawkins here is saying, if the universe is all that there is, the material is all that there is, bad things are just dumb to bad luck. There's no such thing as good and evil in that sense. So here he's actually contradicting himself, right? On one hand, he's saying that we can do good. And on the other hand, he's also saying that God is evil. But then, on another ground, he says that on atheism, there's no such thing as good or evil. So which is which? Right? Which is which? That's the confusing part. I would say this version of Dawkins is a more honest view of atheism than the previous ones. So the question, can men be good without believing in God? Right? That's actually what the atheist is saying or asking. The short answer is yes. We don't need to believe in God or follow the Bible to have a general knowledge of what's right and wrong. Actually, that's what we expect, right? Because according to the biblical narratives, we are all created in the image of God. Whether you believe in Him or not, you are still created in the image of God. Innately, you will understand moral values. You can differentiate right from wrong. So, man being able to be good without believing in God is actually expected, not a problem at all. But the question that we should be asking is, can man be good without God? That's a different question. Does God exist in the first place? If he does not, can morality still stand up? Sorry. So the question is, when we talk about good and evil, we need to have a standard. So when the skeptic is saying that God is evil, we must also then mean that there's such a thing as good, right? And there is a standard here. The question is, what is the standard? If the skeptic says that, no, there is no need for a standard. If there's no need for a standard, then it's just opinion. Is your opinion against mine? Right? When I say the best ice cream flavor is chocolate, okay? That is an opinion. Do I impose it on all my friends? No. Right? Because it's not a moral issue. It is an opinion. There is no standard. But when I say torturing baby for fun is wrong, I expect everyone to follow that standard. Because it is a moral issue. So there's a difference there. When the skeptic says that something is evil and expects the world to follow, then they are assuming that there is a standard. So the question is, what is this standard? Some atheists will say that we know rape is wrong because it violates the victim's rights and it rips apart the social fabric. Okay, so here they are saying, look, we have a reason to explain it. We know that it is wrong because it violates the victim's rights and it rips apart the social fabric, right? Valid reasons. But if you read deeper into this, the question is, where do they get the rights from? If we're just animals, where did we get the rights? The lion doesn't sit in the cave one day to wonder if he has violated the rights of the deer that he ate. Maybe I should stop violating the rights of my prey. No such thing. There's no rights in that sense. And when we talk about social fabric, what do we really mean by that social fabric? Because if nature is all there is, value is meaningless. The only goal that we have is survival. So the social fabric is then contingent on survival. And if survival is the only objective, then you will end up with problems because you then have valid reasons to eliminate the weak. Right? There's no reason why eliminating the weak would be bad for the social fabric by that framework. So atheists try to explain it like that, but they cannot back up what rights and social fabric even mean. So the problem isn't one of knowing what's the right thing to do. Morality is to be built on being. What does it mean to be a human being? Do we have intrinsic value and rights? And therefore, when you violate that value and right, then no matter what, no matter the outcome, no matter the reason, whether it's good for survival or not, it would still be wrong. Even if the whole world does the same thing, it would still be wrong. That's what we mean by morality, and that's what we mean by being. Right? So how do we define good in the first place? Now, value can only truly be provided when it's being assigned. Value cannot be created just by a function alone. Okay? If I put $1 million worth of cold hard cash here versus my MacBook over here, which one is more valuable? The cold hard cash, right? But it's just paper. It has no function at all. It is worth $1 million because we assign it the value. In fact, my MacBook can do more things than the paper. But the cash is more valuable because we assign it the value. So real value has to be assigned. And if we just go by nature alone, it will not work. Okay? So what am I really trying to say? Okay, if I put it in a flow diagram, the argument is that God is evil. And therefore, you cannot believe in God. But when we say God is evil, we assume there is an objective moral law. There is such a thing as objective good and evil. Okay, that's what we've been talking about. But without God, you don't have objective moral laws. So you no longer have the standard. And without the standard, you cannot accuse God of being evil because you have no way to define evil in the first place. Okay? Now, those of you who are more exposed to the skeptical views, you may question, why is it that without God, we don't have objective moral laws? Dawkins obviously proposed a different alternative, right? So the alternative here is whether this is a necessary premise. Do we really need God? And if we take God out of the picture, the only alternative that you have is naturalistic evolution. Okay? So we'll look at that a little bit today. Can naturalistic evolution provide morality? If it can't, then again we go back to God as the necessary divine foundation for goodness. Okay? So evolution can be a very exciting topic, but we don't have time, so today will just be like a teaser. When we talk about evolution, we just need to be very specific that as Christians, the problem we have is with macroevolution. This is what we call Darwin's theory of evolution. And the premise of this evolution is that there is common descent. Our ancestry looks like a tree. Okay, all of us came from one to many. So you can extend all the species and all the organisms trace back to a single root. That's common descent. The second aspect is that all these variations and diversity will come through natural selection, acting on random mutation, and is guided towards survival. Okay, this is the evolution that we have a problem with. We have no problem with what we call microevolution. That's fact. Okay? COVID-19 has evolved God knows how many times already, right? We accept that. That's no problem. A virus stays a virus. Okay? No problem. A bird stays a bird. But you don't go from a ghoul to the zoo to us. Right? We don't go from jelly to animal to human. That's what we are saying. Doesn't make sense, and the evidence doesn't line up. Okay? If you have questions, we can tackle this more. But essentially, this is the evolution that we are addressing today. Can naturalistic evolution explain more?